And I hear that a lot as well. I have to follow my plan. And then here's number one, right? Then I say, tell me about your plan. And it turns out they don't really have a good plan.
About 2 years ago, I saw basically a fund manager talking about what were the things that basically identified great traders again and again and again in all her time, from either actually working with traders and fund managers or coaching them or helping them, etc. And she said, there's three things they kept coming back to, which was process, discipline, and self-awareness. And these three things kept showing up, time and time again in the sort of, let's say, the demographics of good traders. Every time you debrief a trade, if it's after the trade is finished, at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter, every time you relive those trades, well, then you're learning from it. You're doing what you can to accelerate the progress as a trader.
For me, I think pain is a great way to learn. No matter what we do in life, we're going to have painful experiences, and we can either choose to learn from it or we can choose to continue to go on and experience more pain, right? So like the kid who's 2 years old that touches the hot stove, right? He's instantly going to learn that behavior causes pain, right? And as soon as he does that, it hurts, and he's not going to do it again. The funny thing about traders is maybe, that's not a great example, because touching something and actually burning your hand is like, okay, I'm not going to do that again. But losing money, maybe you just got enough money that you're just willing to experience that pain over and over and over and over and over again. But sometimes it takes that much. But yeah, the way discipline is taught is through pain. And either you're going to change or you're not. But once you actually make that change and you get the discipline, then it becomes easy. Once you conquer it, then it becomes easy. The key is just not to give up and to continue working on it. And if you fall down, get back up. Fall down, get back up. Fall down, get back up. Nothing in life that's worth accomplishing is easy, but you got to have that persevering mindset to keep going through the tough times.
The key is discipline. I think that really, again, just to go back to that, is I can give 100 traders rules, okay, that they need to follow, my 10 rules of trading. But how many of those traders are going to really follow them, right? What do you think? Out of 100 people, they come in, I give them the rules. How many out of 100 do you think are going to be able to follow them and implement them?
5%, so 5 of them.
Right, exactly. I think that's the hardest part, is just being able to follow rules. How many people don't like to follow rules? Or how many people try to peg the top and peg the bottom of the market? How many people can sit and watch the market an entire day and say, you know what? There really are no great setups. The market itself is stuck in a bad spot. I'm going to wait for tomorrow. And especially I run a room. So, we have new traders coming in all the time. And there are days where I don't see too much, and I hate to force a trade, but then how come you're not trading? What are you doing? I'm like, I'm really not doing anything today, but tomorrow, then they'll see tomorrow I'll do, 10, 15 trades. And I think that, that's really key, is to really, learn when to enter and when not to enter. When your system works 6 straight weeks in a row, okay, then you're good to go. Because you can get lucky with anything, a week.
Yeah.
But if you do 6 weeks, if your system is working and you're able to implement it, for 6 straight weeks, you have positive weeks. That's what I do to test anything new. So you could be trading for 20 years, but if you've got a new system or somebody's come to you, hey, check this strategy out. I want to do it for 6 weeks and make sure that it works before I start teaching it to others, or before I start, using it myself.
if you have a set of rules, like rules for entry of any strategy, which hopefully people listening will, and you stick to them, you'll accept that, okay, there's no strategy which wins all the time. Some strategies win some of the time, some most of the time, but there's no strategy that wins the whole time. And losing the battle, i.e. losing the trade, is part and parcel of trading. It's like a necessary business expense to ultimately winning the war and having a positive overall equity curve over the course of months and the years you'll be trading for. But if you do fudge the rules for entry and you do have a losing outcome, then you need a punishment and reward system. If you are sticking to the rules and you're having a good outcome or even a break-even outcome, then reward yourself with something that is unrelated to trading, what you might not otherwise do. You treat yourself like an evening out somewhere, like a nice restaurant, or go clubbing with your friends to a club you wouldn't otherwise go to, a nice upmarket, upscale place, or, just use your imagination. But if it's a punishment, then it's the reverse of that. Do something which you ultimately really don't want to do. Like, I'd say, if you're English, British, read Gordon Brown's autobiography. It's the most boring read on the planet. And is written by the most boring man on the planet. I guess if you're based in the States, the equivalent could be George Bush's autobiography. I imagine that's pretty boring. You should not have an emotional attachment to the outcome of the trade. Just like, a little bit like dating, for example. I mean, generally people, from my own experiences, being a single individual in the past, when I was certainly dating a lot, through not having an emotional attachment to the outcome of the date or the situation, or whether it's a sales call. I used to work in sales when I was younger. As soon as I removed the emotional attachment to the outcome of the situation, whatever it was, the better my results were. And the less exhausting the process became, the easier it was to facilitate the process.
And I hear that a lot as well. I have to follow my plan. And then here's number one, right? Then I say, tell me about your plan. And it turns out they don't really have a good plan.
Right.
If they have a plan. So if they have a plan, it's not written down, it's not step by step, it's not clearly defined. It's a mess all over the place. No wonder you can't be disciplined. And here's my favorite example. How do you know when to exit the train, when you get out of the train? When the doors open. But, your trading strategy has to be exactly the same. Like, are the doors opening now? Do you exit this trade or do you enter this trade? But I don't know if you've seen the same, but I've seen it a lot, that traders, their strategy is just a mess all over the place. When you make a mistake, or when we make a mistake, drive down the wrong street, what do? We turn around. We don't keep driving down the wrong street, right? But this is what traders do. They get into the trade. It turns out, like, let's suppose I re-entered, but the euro continued to collapse. Like, me staying in the trade would have been, I keep driving down the wrong street. Instead of driving up north towards the airport, I keep driving down southeast towards the wineries. Where do I end up? At the wineries, of course, and not at the airport. So what I was doing was I implemented a strategy of how to get best to the winery and not to the airport. And then I call you, Etienne. Oh, I'm such an idiot. I'm such a loser. I didn't make it to the airport. Well, why? Well, because I was driving down to the wineries. It sounds so ludicrous, right? So crazy. But this is what traders do in trading.
Fundamentally, to be good at anything, you've got to have the skills and the knowledge to do the job, whatever that is, whether it be chess or music or trading or the military discipline. So it's a word which we use a lot. And then I'll say to people, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by discipline? And what most people mean by discipline is, I've got my trading plan, my process, and I'm sticking to that, pretty rigidly. There's a few things. The first one really is, when or why aren't people sticking to their plan? So this is always an interesting question. So no trader is ill-disciplined all of the time. I think it's a real key thing. So this is what I want to try and make, is that when we say we're not disciplined, we probably mean there are some parts of our trading when we're not disciplined. So we need to kind of make it a bit more micro rather than macro. Then we're curious about, okay, well, are there specific situations when you tend to be disciplined and when you tend to be not so disciplined? So we can kind of narrow it down into specific trading situations. We can also look at, are there particular factors? Does it tend to be an emotion? Is it the emotion which arises, which tends to cloud your judgment? Or is it more of a mental event? Is it much more, is it the thought processes that you're going through? Or is it kind of like an impulse, like an urge, a craving type feeling? Or does it come particularly when you're kind of, highly stressed? Or does it come when you're perhaps, at the lower end, when you're bored and maybe frustrated? So we want to kind of have a look at, what is it specifically that's happening when the trader's not being disciplined? What's the specific situations and what's happening for that person in terms of thinking, in terms of feeling, in terms of habitual kind of impulses and urges? And then we can work on that. But we also have to recognize that's not happening all of the time. So we're also interested in, which is important, when is the trader being disciplined? And then what can we identify about those times? So, the goal can be, for some traders, it's all about trying to be ill-disciplined less of the time. But you can achieve that same goal if you try and be disciplined more of the time. So, be curious about when you are disciplined. Simple things can be, I did my preparation. I was well prepared. For a large number of traders, being well prepared increases discipline. Risk management, trading appropriate risk, taking appropriate risk for the market you're trading and what you're trying to achieve, not trading too big, has a big impact on discipline. And the time frames they trade over can be a big factor. So, people who are very analytical, like to kind of really kind of solve a puzzle and a problem and kind of really analyze and work things out, they might get a lot more pleasure and joy in a long time trade or, more of an investment profile, where somebody who's much more kind of in the flow, intuitive, will probably prefer much more of a shorter time frame. The closer your trading style is to your strengths and your interests, the easier discipline is going to be as well. Even things like fatigue, mental, emotional and physical fatigue can affect discipline because they have an impact on our willpower and self-control. So, and then the other piece of this is being too rigid. So being too disciplined actually could be a disadvantage, because obviously once you enter a trade, the market's dynamic, it's moving all the time. So things may change once you're in the trade, which now mean that your initial views or ideas are no longer as valid. So you may have a profit target, but it may actually be a better thing to get out before the profit target based on what's happened in the market.